Welcome everyone. In this video, I'll show you a better way to manage CSS variables in Builderius, especially when you need to split your design tokens into tiers or hide certain variables from the UI. Our main goal is to solve the issue of not being able to create multiple root selectors, which by the way is not a limitation unique to Builderius. As a bonus, we'll also be able to hide variables we don't want appearing in the UI, keeping our variable list clean and focused. To speed things up, I'll be using the pro version of Builderius since the free version doesn't support pasting of custom CSS. If you are still on the fence, I'd suggest picking up a pro license while the current deal is active. Try it. If it doesn't click for you, get a refund. If it does, you got it at a great price. So let's start by looking at how things are working right now. As you can see here, all my variables are in one root selector, my tier 1 variables, my tier 2 variables, and my tier 3 variables for buttons. So for the record, there's nothing wrong with using just one root selector. I personally prefer using two, and if I remember correctly, Kevin Powell also used 2 or more in the original front-end master's course. So there you have it. Now, in order to use multiple root selectors, we first need to understand what root actually is. In our previous video, we mentioned that root is a pseudo class selector that targets the HTML element with a specificity of 0, 1, 0. If we are not allowed to create another root, shouldn't we just look for selectors that also target the HTML element and probably have a specificity of 0, 1, 0? Wouldn't that be functionally equivalent? So this is just going to be our solution for this particular problem. And I've come up with 3 selectors that achieve this, and they should cover most use cases. It's always good to have a backup, so I have more than one. The first selector is going to be root. The second one is root where root, and the third one is root where HTML, which is similar to root where root. Now let's break down how each one works and why it behaves like root. So taking the first one is root. This selector wraps the root inside the is pseudo class. The important thing to know about is that its specificity is equal to the most specific selector inside it. In this case, that's just root, which has a specificity of 0, 1, 0. So is root ends up having the same specificity as root. It targets the same HTML element and works seamlessly with Builderius' UI, meaning variables defined here behave just like those in a regular root. So is root is another way of saying root. Now the next one is root where root. This selector chains the root selector with where root. The trick here is that where always contributes 0 specificity no matter what you put inside it. So we start with root selector, which has 0, 1, 0 already, a specificity of 0, 1, 0. Then we add the where root, which has a specificity of 0, 0, 0. So if you add 0, 1, 0 plus 0, 0, 0, the total specificity is still 0, 1, 0. So the root where root targets HTML element and behaves exactly like the root, but it's treated as a separate block in Builderius, so giving us another way to organizationally flexibly arrange and control variables. Now the last one is just a variation of what we just looked at. This changed the root with where HTML. Once again, where adds no specificity, and since HTML targets the same element as the root, which is HTML, the result is functionally equivalent. So the final specificity is still 0, 1, 0, and the selector continues to target the HTML element just like root. So I think this is a very nice workaround to creating the root selector, multiple versions of the root selector in Builderius or any other builder that does not allow the graphical representation of multiple roots. So now let's head into Builderius and see the before and after of this. So this is our roots. Let's close this. So if I was to come to, say, color, you are going to see I have all my variables, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And I have them here. We have them in button. These are my tier 3. And we have them in color, my tier 1 and my tier 2 variables. I don't like the fact that these variables are not the way I have them here. I have them here tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Here they are alphabetical. I think this is what who was it was talking about? Bloody hell, I've forgotten his name. Anyway, so this is what we have. If we now go back to our selectors, so what I want to do is, let me just create it in code, the isRoot selector. Let me create it here. So I'm going to create this is how it is. If I remember my CSS. So we have our isRoot selector. We're now going to move our tier 1 variables. These are our tier 1 variables. Come on. We're going to leave our tier 2 and our tier 3. Paste. So if we look at our custom selector, we have our isRoot. And let's save. So let's look at it in the front end. So here we have isRoot, our tier 1 variables, and we have root, our tier 2 and 3 variables. And this is the same as saying root. Now let's go back and look at this in our CSS variable section. So here we have our tier 3 buttons, then our tier 2 color, then this is our tier 1, which is coming from the isRoot. So if we go and take a look, if we come down here to isRoot, if you come to CSS variables isRoot, this is what you have. So if you have the free version, you have to come here and manually drop your tier 1. Now if we were to look at adding stuff, if we pull this up, what you are going to see here is color background, color text, and button primary. So these are our tier 2 and tier 3 variables. So my tier 1 tokens have been hidden. So this is one of the advantages of using a selector like isRoot. Now there's one issue I found that people using free are not going to experience. So that's if I was to come here. Right, so CSS selector here, as you can see, I can see the selector for roots here. If I was to go to H1, it's blank. I don't have anything here. This shows us all our isRoot and root. This shows us for the main selector itself. So if I was to come to isRoot, see, we have a huge problem. So I think this is a bug. You can't see the selector for isRoot here, but you can see it here. And this is why it's good to have options, and we can use our other selector, which is root where root or root where HTML. You can rename your selector here, but sometimes I found out when you try to rename, the old one remains in code and the new one is created, so you have them being duplicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a root where root here. We're going to change this to root where root, right? Let me see, is it changed? I'll do it. Root where root, yes. So if I look at this selector, whoop, does it seem to be broken too? Root where roots. Let me refresh and see what happens. Or let me try root where HTML. Let me refresh. Let's root where HTML. So root where HTML works. Just to be sure. Let's refresh to make sure it works. Then we'll test these roots. So if there's a bug, at least the Builderius team can have a look at it. So root where root works. Then I think all that is left is roots. Let's test. This was the original one. You know, just to make sure everything works. Nope, it doesn't. So its root selector does not work, but our other two options work. So now let's just try to implement them inside. Let me just implement it in code. Let's look at body. So we don't have a body selector. I want my background to be, let's just say body. Okay, right, now this is another problem. Whenever you type inside this create new selector, if you do not add anything else, it adds a period, making it like a class. So you see here, it says body, but this is not what I want. And even though in code, this is not going to be difficult to do in code. I could just do, here I could just do a body selector. Right? And the selector is here. But in the free version of Builderius, you are not going to be able to do this. I think it's a bug. What I'm going to recommend is the way you have these selectors that are permanent, you can't delete them. The Builderius team should add a body selector, because there's no way to create a body selector here. The only way we can do it is similar to what we just did now. We're just going to say is what? Is body. We'll create the selector. Then maybe if we come here to background, theme, color, theme, background, main. Yes, we can change the background this way. So I think they need to do something about the body selector here. But here, since we've created it in code, no need to use its body. And this is one of the reasons why you need to get the pro version of Builderius. Quit being cheap. So if I'm on the body selector, I can come to the background, and the background, so my color background main, as you can see, all those tier 1 variables are not here. They are not here to distract me. So I can just pick, this is the main background for the page. Then for my H1, the text color for headings is the light version. This one. Text main light is the one for headings, I believe. Oh, sorry. I'm not doing background. Come on. We're doing color. Now I like how this thing highlights. So I believe it was text, is text main light. Then I can create a class and add to the primary button. You know what? Let's just create the class. Where do I even create classes in Builderius? I can't remember. Let me just add it to button directly. But you should have a class called primary button. Then the background for the primary button is button primary color background is the green. No, was it green? No, this should be button primary color background should be green. So probably maybe I made a mistake. But anyway, this is supposed to connect to the tier 2 variable. The color primary background is supposed to be connected to the color background accent because it's green. Whatever, you understand what I'm trying to show. So at the end of the day, this is how you split your variables into different tiers if you want to separate them into tiers, and if you want to be able to hide your tier 1 variables from showing up in the UI. Now, I wanted to make a case for adding global CSS, the ability to import and export for the free users, especially given something like, the body here, we could not add it. We had to do a workaround. If they could import and export, they could write all their code and import it. But I'm going to leave this particular argument probably for when I finish, because there's the benefit to the free users, there's the detriment to the Builderius team themselves. They have to make some money. If they make Pro too strong, if they make the free version too strong, nobody's going to want to buy the Pro. And for the free users, I mean, they can argue it's very difficult to start building a site even with the free version if they cannot get access to fundamental CSS at the beginning. But I'll have this argument at the end of the course. And in the next video, we're going to look at color. We're going to look at alternative color spaces like OKLCH, because I don't use HSL or RGB anymore. And probably I'm going to make sure I get all our variables for color, because these are not all our variables. I just picked a few. By then I'll have all the variables we are going to use. All the variables we are going to use on the page, all of them, all the color variables. Then we're going to look at how to add different ways to add colors like OKLCH if a browser supports it. Then after that, we are going to look at typography, and probably we'll be done with variables, and we can get to the next thing in the course. So if you have any question or anything you want to share, let me know in the comments or in the Facebook group. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.